Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. First graphic, the advisory chart, or the watch warning advisory graphic here, and there's still a high surf advisory out for actually tonight and extending into Sunday here, St. Lawrence Island, North Shore there for high surf due to the strong winds gusting over 50 miles per hour, and the seas as high as, I believe, 13 to 16 feet. And then also here on the north coast of the Seward Peninsula and up there at Point Hope as well. Again, those all out until or into Sunday, at which time the winds will start slackening off and diminishing. Moving on to the fire danger chart, removed it here out of the Copper River Basin area. High fire danger again around the Yukon River there, Yukon Flats up north to the Brooks Range. There was some extreme fire danger on the southern slopes of the extreme eastern mountains up there. And probably won't be until Sunday. Could get some pretty good rain into there, or at least something significant. May have some showers lifting northward into that southern area tomorrow, but it looks like Sunday will be the wetter of the 2 days over in that area. And for satellite imagery, a couple of systems, one here in the Gulf of Alaska, another one back up here to the northwest, in between, clearing there in the high fire danger zone. Also fair weather, maybe some breaks right through the central interior, but otherwise mostly cloudy. Northern Bristol Bay getting some clearing as well. Dry area between that. Low pressure here south of the Kenai Peninsula, and this frontal boundary kind of rotating into the southeast coast there and spreading moisture. Not too bad on the rainfall today. 12-hour amounts is a little over an inch at Cordova during the 12-hour period ending at 4 p.m. this afternoon, with rain spilling into the northern Cook Inlet area, Kenai Peninsula, and some moisture sliding up to the north there. With the next system, actually a wetter one up here to the northwest, bringing with the front coming through, winds already gusting 40 to as high as 50 miles per hour here, especially over at Gamble, getting gusts over 45 miles per hour, and pretty gusty at Teller and Tin City as well, and back on up to the north with gusts 35 to 40 miles an hour on those western capes, and pretty good rainfall amounts with that front as well, with Koyuk there in Norton Bay picking up a little over an inch. By contrast, so Nome only had 0.03 of an inch. Again, these are 12-hour amounts for Friday. Otherwise, Selawik picked up 3/4 of an inch of rain, and Noatak also about 3/4 of an inch, while Wales had 2/3 of an inch of rain, as did Savunga, and heavy rain in the forecast for tonight for those areas, and then that'll become more showery. But winds will be stay pretty strong there, as I mentioned, into Sunday. Rolling that through again, clouds shifting down but dissipating here as they pass the Pervolofs. The main front still back up here to the north, heading south, and otherwise pretty fair here across the Aleutians. Light winds, lots of clouds, patchy areas of fog, nothing too significant. It kind of fogged in today, St. Paul and St. George, but not too bad there for the Unalaska area as well as the Aleutians. And rolling that one more time, obviously higher pressure back out here to the west, clockwise flow around that, driving that front southward. An upper level low in the cold air back up around Wrangell Island. That'll be sliding southeastward over the weekend, well, tonight and tomorrow, and then kick eastward on Sunday. And that's going to mean cloudy, cool, chilly weather, low snowfall levels here, especially over southern Alaska, and not so much up over the northeast. You'll be in that return flow out of the southeast, east-southeast on the north side of the upper low. On the chart today, here's the band of rain with this front and the low center there, just south-southwest of Middleton Island from northern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula eastward there, in across the northern southeast coast, just clouds on down to the south. Scattered areas of thunderstorms here, eastern Alaska range, but mostly over in Canada. So really nothing very widespread at all this afternoon. A few showers down towards the Aleutian Range, and then some low stuff, fog, rain, drizzle there on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, mostly in the central areas. Otherwise, just a lot of low clouds, patchy areas of fog over the southern Bering and the Aleutians, and this low staying to the south there, the precipitation still fair ways to the south of the central Aleutians, no threat at least through tonight. This low center now near St. Lawrence Island, gradually shifting eastward, strong north winds coming in behind that frontal boundary there. And we'll see for tonight that shifts into about St. Michael or Stebbins, roughly. Tight gradient here, good gale force winds, full gales, 40 to 45 knots in the forecast there from Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, southward, actually all the way to Nunivak Island with 40 to 45 knot winds through tomorrow out of the north and northwest. Front brings a brief period of rain into the Pribilofs tonight, followed by possibly some clearing. Maybe this strong enough to lift the lower cloud deck out and break it up a little bit. So behind the front could see some clearing periods overnight tonight. Rain spreading on down to the Alaska Peninsula. Just a few showers there for Unalaska Island. No change for the central and western Aleutian areas. And a dry swath right through here. Variably cloudy, but dry conditions there. Dry across the northeast interior as well on out to the eastern Arctic coast. But rain about where it was today here on the central Arctic coast, from roughly Deadhorse back to the west. Probably staying dry there over toward Kaktovik. But Nuiqsut again on back to Wainwright, and then down to the southwest looks pretty wet, but the winds will be farther to the west. Otherwise, low pressure stays in the Gulf of Alaska. Flow around that keeps it wet. Periods of rain for the North Gulf Coast. Delphin Cove to Yakutat. Wet conditions continue Cordova, Prince William Sound. A little more showery here later on this evening here for the Cook Inlet area and even the Kenai Peninsula. Scattered showers up along the Alaska Range, especially southern slopes, and rain right along the coast here, the Panhandle, with the some of that sliding up, mostly to the west of Juneau, probably catching Haines with a little bit of moisture, but definitely the heavier stuff tonight will be from Yakutat on over to Cordova. Then for tomorrow, that whole mess slides in, so rain from the Queen Charlotte's, periods of fog all the way up along the North Gulf Coast. Again, becoming more showery here over the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound area. Chance of thunderstorms all along the Alaska Range, possibly as far east as Mount Susitna, say, but also over toward Delta, could see some isolated thunderstorms, maybe some sunshine north of there from the White Mountains to Eagle possibly. Another batch of thunderstorms possible here, southern upper Yukon valleys, that area kind of shifting north throughout the day tomorrow. So that may bring some moisture into the high fire danger zone, along with the chance of some lightning strikes. Otherwise, northeast flow there keeps the Arctic coast, central east side there, in the low clouds, fog, and drizzle condition with more steadier rain on the western north slope of the Brooks Range. Strong winds continue tomorrow. Again, full gales from the Chukchi Sea, Cape Lisburne, all the way down Nunivak Island. In fact, I think there's even gale force winds in the forecast south of Nunivak Island. Much lighter, though, for the Pribilofs and less gradient with a pretty good area of high pressure out here over the west central Bering Sea. Otherwise, low clouds, fog, areas of drizzle. That mostly north of the Aleutians, though, although catching on Alaska possibly. And this front down to the south, again, that precipitation area staying well to the south, so you could see some sun breaks possibly for Atka and Adak. Otherwise, lee side of the Alaska Peninsula looks really good tomorrow. Could see some pretty good sunshine breaking out from Chignik on over to Sand Point and maybe Falls Pass once again. Otherwise, just a chance of a shower in the afternoon, mountainous terrain at Kodiak. Otherwise, not a bad day coming up there. But then coming into Sunday, upper level trough comes southward. Tomorrow shifts slowly eastward. It'll be just south of the Kenai Peninsula. So Sunday shaping up to be a rather wet, chilly day here. Snowfall levels possibly as low as 4,000 feet here across southern Alaska. a little bit higher on up to the north, but you can see pretty good shot of moisture possible there up in the northeast interior. Back along the Brooks Range, drying out, downsloping flow off the western Brooks Range might result in some sunshine for the Kobuk, Selawik Valley areas, and from Kotzebue on up to Point Hope. Could see some sunshine. Pretty gusty winds out in the northeast continuing there for the Kivalina area. Less winds though, especially south of the strait. Less wind diminishing here for St. Lawrence Island, but still pretty tight gradient up there to the north. And along the Brooks Range, also a little bit tighter gradient there on the eastern Arctic coast. I believe 25 knot winds in the forecast out of the east there for Sunday. And for the Panhandle, again, large upper level low here in the Gulf of Alaska. Southwest flow is going to send surges of moisture in throughout well, actually tomorrow and Sunday, and probably into Monday as well, with might not see much of a noticeable break in between each trough as it rotates in. So for temperatures down that way today, anywhere from the mid-50s, 54 at Elfin Cove, up to 66 degrees, both at Stewart and at the airport in Juneau. Skagway a little bit warmer at 68 degrees, Sitka 60, 61 down at Klawock, 50s here North Gulf Coast, South Central Alaska. Willow and Big Lake both up to 61 today, as well as Wasilla, 55 though over at Palmer. Mid-50s here for the Kenai Peninsula, but Talkeetna up to 65 degrees. Same thing at McCarthy. 71 at Northway, otherwise Eagle just 68, and then mid-60s Tanana Valley. 69 degrees in Fort Yukon today with some sunshine, and 63 at Sagwan, but Umiat in the clouds and rain, 52 degrees. And you can see mid to upper 30s here, central western Arctic coast, that chillier air already showing up there. Lower to mid 40s back to the west, to 50s from Kotzebue at 54, 53 Nome, 64 though in McGrath, and about the same in Bethel, upper 50s along the coast, lower 40s from Savunga with those strong north winds, to lower 50s there for the Pribilofs at St. Paul, 60s, lower 60s here on the south side of the peninsula, 58 though at Cold Bay, and 55 on Alaska, 57 at Atka, down to 49 at Shimia. Lows for tonight, chilling off into the 30s here, mid to upper, maybe even a tad lower, but not too much, probably staying above freezing all these areas through the night tonight, and lows near 70 here for the, doesn't look right. These are probably the highs for tomorrow. Let's go with the highs for tomorrow, and into the 40s there for tomorrow for the highs, with lower 70s over the eastern interior areas to lower 60s down to the south, and mid 60s for the Panhandle, upper 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow, narrow band of IFR with that front pushing eastward and southward. So again, that'll be swinging past the Pribilofs tonight, probably not reaching the Alaska Peninsula by morning, but definitely marginal VFR right up into Bristol Bay, and then some IFR possible on the southern slopes of the Central Alaska Range. Areas of IFR, western Prince William Sound, all the way down the coastline toward Dixon Entrance. For tomorrow afternoon, band up here to the north becomes a little more extensive, especially along the north slope on out to the eastern Arctic coast there and into the Chukchi Sea, but otherwise marginal VFR, so breaking up out here for the marginal VFR stuff in the Bering Sea, seeing quite a lot more VFR in the forecast out that way for tomorrow we've seen in some time. IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast down to about the Sitka area, and passes Anaktuvik, VFR, same forecast for Radigan. Although Anaktuvik probably picking up some clouds in the afternoon, but they should stay at a VFR variety with showers passing by just to the west. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR. IFR possible, both eastern approaches. That same forecast good for rainy and windy. VFR becoming marginal throughout the day or throughout the afternoon. Isabel though, Isabel Mentasta, VFR all day long. Tanita, marginal VFR. Portage, IFR. And Chilkoot and White looks pretty marginal. And for the freezing levels late tonight at the surface, cold air stuck back up there over the Russian Far East. 2,000 feet though, pushing down towards St. Matthew Island. 6,000 feet down to about Kipnuk, and then much warmer here down across the central Aleutians, about 8 to 10,000 feet across the Panhandle. 6,000 feet, kind of a cold pool here with the first upper low over the Gulf of Alaska, and then kind of a cool wedge northward. And then for icing threats above about 4,000 feet here in the north, 6,000 feet across the southwest interior, light to isolated moderate rime, but could see a little more of the widespread moderate rime icing here over the southern panhandle, tapering off back to the northwest. Jet stream, upper level low coming down and then swinging in right over or along the coast, Yukon Delta coast tomorrow. Good jet out of the northwest, 110 knots, diving southeastward, coming back around, southeast flow ahead of that, but that whole thing will be shifting eastward and southeastward on Sunday, south of the Kenai. But tomorrow, 40 to 50 knot winds here from the northwest coast through the Bering Strait, right along the coast, and then dropping back dramatically here as you get down toward the Alaska Peninsula, with southeasterlies 20 to 25 right off the southeast coast. And for 3,000 feet, about the same pattern there. 35 to 45 knot winds here, we'll call it, from the Chukchi Sea southward toward Nunivak Island. 25 knots there into Bristol Bay, circulating back around. Southerlies at about 25 along the western Alaska Range. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop, widespread from Wainwright all the way down to probably Kivalina, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, down along the southwest coast into Togiak Bay, and then along the lee side of the Aleutian Range and Alaska Peninsula. A little choppy there for Kodiak Island, smooth central eastern interior. And after the break, I'll be back with the Ice Edge and the marine forecasts.
There are many different types of aircraft being used in Southeast Alaska. Air commerce here is utilized the way the rest of the U.S. uses taxis, buses, and trucks. Helicopters and float planes are the most widely used aircraft. However, fixed gear and retractable gear aircraft are found in most Alaskan fleets. Be sure to monitor a local radio frequency at all times and make frequent position reports. It's important that you file a flight plan and stick to it. Then, if an emergency landing is imminent, the radio is already set to make a report. Be aware that several large air carriers land at Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Sitka, Gustavus, and Juneau. Having good communication and keeping vigilant can save you from becoming a near mid-air collision, or NMAC statistic. The vortices that are generated by these large aircraft can cause a smaller aircraft to be forced onto the runway during landing or departure. To avoid wake turbulence, try landing beyond the larger aircraft's touchdown point and take off prior to their rotation point. It's best to wait the recommended 3 to 5 minutes for wake turbulence abatement. If the tower does not make a recommendation for a wait for wake turbulence abatement, the pilot should make the request. While on cross-country flights, plot your course on the chart. Keep a close track of where you are at all times. It's easy for one inlet or bay to look very much like another. Pilotage is a skill that is alive and well in Alaska. Navigation aids are few and far between, and a GPS should only be used as a backup for the chart and pilotage. As a reminder, there are no GPS instrument approaches in Southeast Alaska at this time. Remember that alternating or flashing landing lights are unique to Alaska's aviation community. They are used to enhance visibility of aircraft in flight. A word of caution: remain within gliding distance of the shore when at all possible. The water is very cold, even in the summer. In the event of a forced water landing, the chances of survival are very slim due to hypothermia. Weather changes rapidly, and often the changes are not forecast. Making a 180-degree turn and a precautionary landing at the first available landing area, even a beach, can save your life. Pilots often wait out bad weather at an outlying strip or beach. You should always be prepared to lay over until better weather arrives. If the wind is blowing, chances are the skies will be clear, but the ride bumpy. Wind can be seen on the water in the form of whitecaps. This indicates that the water could be too rough for landing a float plane. It's wise to call flight service prior to departure to see what the surface conditions will be at your intended airport destination. As the saying goes, If you don't like the weather here, just wait 10 minutes. The 60 nautical mile trip to Haines from Juneau is fairly straightforward. One noteworthy item is the lack of beaches in the area. The slope of the mountains continues to the bottom of the canal, causing small rocky outcroppings in most areas. Flying up the Lynn Canal to Chilkat Inlet is the preferred route to Haines. The Lynn Canal has several prominent reporting points that are used by the local operators and private pilots. After departing Juneau to the west, you should fly to the right side of Lynn Canal, close to the land mass. Utilize the hemispheric rule for determining your flying altitude. The first prominent departure reporting points are Lena Point, T Harbor, Eagle Beach, and Benjamin Island.
Sea ice analysis, not much different from yesterday. Still, possibly this area may or may not be there. If it is there, it'll probably be gone by Tuesday. Otherwise, not really much change expected in the ice edge. Wasn't much change from yesterday and not expected for the next several days. And for the southeast coast, small craft advisories on the south coast, south 20 becoming southeast of 20 knots on the north coast. Clarence Strait, south 25. Falling back to 15 for Clarence Strait. Pretty light winds for northern Cook Inlet and Glacier Bay, or for northern Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. And then those pick up to 20 knots, again strongest in the northern part of the canal with seas building to 4 feet. South winds 20 for Clarence Strait. Westerlies at 20 on the south coast, southwest 20, north coast there. Seas 7 to as high as 9 feet. So small craft advisories here on the south coast through Sunday. And for Prince William Sound, light northeasterlies, 15 to 20 knot winds for Cook Inlet out of the southwest. Westerlies 20 knots, with the small craft advisories here, Kodiak Island. And Shelikof Strait, southwest 30 knots with 8-foot seas. And then for Sunday, those become windier, and the small craft advisories extend along the North Gulf Coast, west-southwest 25 to 30, 25 to 30 knot winds here all the way back to Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak, and Kachemak Bay, small craft advisories, southern Cook Inlet. West winds 30 knots for Bristol Bay, and small craft advisories out of the west for the Alaska Peninsula all the way over to Sitkinak with seas 7 to 8 feet. On Sunday, west 30 now for Bristol Bay, northwest 25 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, much lighter northerlies at 15, south side, but still 25 knots from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. For the Fox Islands, west 15 to 20 knots, northeast 15 to as high as 25 knots south of the Central Aleutians. Small craft advisories back to the west, diminishing to 20 knots toward Chimney and Attu. And then for Sunday, northeast 20, increasing to 25 knots. Pretty stiff northeast wind here for the Central Aleutians at 30 knots, extend all the way eastward, pretty uniform wind pattern and wave pattern to Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, tomorrow, full gales, especially north of Nunivak Island. Almost a storm, but not quite. We'll go north 45 knots. Probably see some storm force gusts, though, for St. Lawrence Island, with gales down into the central Bering Sea around St. Matthew Island. 20 knots is about it for the Pribilofs, with seas at 8 feet, so you still have some small craft advisories. That's good enough for small craft advisories for both St. Paul and St. George. And then on Sunday, lose the gales, but still a good stiff north wind at 30 there for St. Lawrence Island, all the way down to Nunivak Island and south, but staying west of Kuskokwim Bay. North just 15 for the Pribilof, seas 7 feet, north 25, 9-foot seas, St. Matthew Island. Up along the Arctic coast, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, northeast of 25 for tomorrow, northeast 20. The central coast kind of lightening up there, and then back to 30 knots, increasing to 40 knots from Cape Beaufort, all the way down to the Bering Strait, and again 45 knots there, Chukchi Sea. And for Sunday, hold on to those gales. Stays tight enough gradient here for 40-knot winds, again from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Teller or to Wales, and 30-knot northeasterlies, western coast, and small craft advisories now, the entire Arctic coast, and up to 30 knots there for the east side. For tonight again, here's that low pressure area and the tight gradient coming in behind it. Warm front, lots of rain all the way up to the central Arctic coast. Rain heavy this evening, St. Lawrence Island. Starting to taper off later tonight, but those strong winds, high surf advisories from Point Hope all the way down just the western north side of the Seward Peninsula, north shore of St. Lawrence Island into Sunday. And rain spreading into the southwest there across or into western Bristol Bay down to the Alaska Peninsula, and rain continuing north Gulf Coast and right along the coast of the Panhandle. But that'll push inland tomorrow, so a couple of really wet days coming up for the Panhandle and north Gulf Coast for the weekend. And lots of showers, isolated thunderstorms, mountainous terrain, still with the strong winds, rain, wet conditions, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.